A warm welcome to the 9th edition of the Shoegazing podcast with me, Jesper Ingevaldsson, who run the blog shoegazing.com. This time you will meet Robin Chang, founder of the leading quality shoe store in Taiwan. It's called Oak Room, located in the capital Taipei. He has been involved in the shoe business for many years and is considered one of the foremost experts on the classic shoe industry in Asia. In this episode, we will focus on the situation for factories making classic quality shoes as well as bespoke shoemakers in Asia, outside of Japan. It's a topic that many in Europe or the US know very little of. And things are happening quickly in this part of the world. This industry has come further than many believe. We will talk about how China has already moved away from being a low-cost production country for shoes. Nowadays it's countries like Laos and Vietnam where manufacturing of quality shoes is growing the quickest. This has meant that we now see a lot of new Chinese independent shoemakers making fully handmade shoes, raised in a shoe industry that in parts had moved on, and now thanks to social media they can reach customers themselves. We also talk about, for example, how the very affordable, often very well-made Asian-made quality shoes will be pushing European manufacturers as they come into play as proper competition. And we'll go into the situation with customers in domestic countries and much more. So you have a very informative half an hour in front of you. Enjoy! Robin Chang,
Yes.
welcome to the Shoegazing podcast.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute great pleasure.
Yeah, I'm very happy
thank
to have you part of it.
And definitely a great pleasure to finally meet you in person.
The same. So you are soon, or you already had it, your 5-year celebration with
Yes,
Oak
that
Room?
was last week.
Last week, yeah. So what is Oak Room for those who don't know?
Oh, we are store based in Taipei, Taiwan, which is my home country. And it's a men's, gentleman's store, but it's a strong focus in shoes, which is my main interest.
Yeah.
But we also have suits and bags and whatnot. But
Yeah. What's your lineup of shoes?
lineup, currently, we have John Lobb,
Yeah.
Crockett Jones, Alden, and we also have Evergreen, Carmina.
Okay.
And we're also having a new store coming soon.
Yeah.
And because our lineup is getting more and more,
Yeah.
so we're gonna have, for example, Carmina
Yeah.
as a main offering for the other store. And so I wanna bump with
Yeah.
Crockett
Okay.
Jones,
They
for
will
example. Yeah.
not compete with each other, but complement each
Yeah.
other, so to speak. Yeah. So is it also in Taipei?
Yes, in Taipei.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So, and how is the interest in classic men's shoes in Taiwan?
Surprisingly, it's been very steady for classic shoes. I think for us at least, it's more steady than, for example, suits, classic suits. Shoes, I think most people, they recognize that having good shoes probably will improve their looks. I mean, more than the suits. So it's the easiest way other than a watch probably to enhance your looks. For quality shoes, of course.
Yeah.
But people in Taiwan, they don't really wear as much formal or suits
Okay.
compared to maybe Hong Kong. So the shoes, it's not exactly black shoes that sells well, but there's still lots of people who really like quality shoes.
Yeah. But in general, you're a bit more casual than Hong Kong. Hong Kong, for example. And you have sort of been one of the pioneers in spreading the word about Japanese classic shoes to the rest of the world. So what made you want to do this push, so to speak?
Back then, I was actually still living in Japan. That was maybe 7-8 years ago, and I like shoes, and I have lots of friends in the shoe industry, mainly as a customer. And I thought that Styleforum, which I've been a member, had given me so much. I've learned so much from it. So I think it's not just for me, but everyone else on the forum try to contribute something too. So I thought I know shoes and I have a close proximity with them. I can speak that language, so why not like introduce some of it with show and tell pictures. And yeah, it's great that the reaction was great. Lots of people was really interested in it. I think there's already some interest around the world, but they just had no access to it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of my first encounters with many of the Japanese makers comes to your style for.
I guess it's just English, not in English language. In Japanese language, if you search on the web, you'll find a lot, but just unfortunately, yes. And the shoemakers themselves, most of them they don't speak English and definitely could not promote themselves in English. So
especially back then, which was sort of before the Instagram boom and all that. So the Japanese men's shoe market obviously is quite developed, but today we will focus on the situation in the rest of Asia. So starting about talking about factory-made, goodly welted or hand-welted shoes, but factory-made shoes. If we sort of generalize a bit, how was the situation in Asia during the late 1900s?
I think back then China was still like the main factory for many brands, especially in Japan too. I know Regal, Union, Imperial, and others. They all had joint factories in China, and also many European brands, fashion brands, Armani and whatnot. They all had shoes made in China too. Maybe rebadged them back there, but I think China was the main area.
And it was also Goodyear welted.
Goodyear welted, and some of the companies I know they're owned by, for example, people Hong Kong or Taiwanese invested companies, and they made introduced Goodyear welted technology there.
So they sort of have a history, but mainly in China.
And since then, but most significantly, maybe 7 years ago, 2012 or so, in China they really hiked up the wages. So now all the companies moved down to Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos.
Exactly.
That has been the trend.
Because there we see more and more factories popping up, so to speak. So is it that factories are moving from China, I would say, down to Laos and Vietnam?
And with that, also maybe the skilled supervisors, skilled managers, some of them are even Japanese or Taiwanese, they all moved down with them. So the whole management moved down away from China. It
started happening when, do you say, 2012?
I think around 2012, 2000 to 2014. That's when lots of companies started moving down. In Laos, there's a big Taiwanese-owned factory too that makes for European and Japanese brands. And Vietnamese shoes. There are several famous Japanese brands that have a joint factory, so like Profetto, for example.
Exactly.
And they make for Isetan and everybody else.
I know Union.
Union too.
As a factory. It's but for us living in Europe, I would say that it's just only the first maybe 5 years or so that we started seeing
Asian made.
Asian shoes actually marketed as Asian made.
Definitely.
And perhaps most of them actually are from China. So the production is still strong in China? Or
production is still strong. It's still strong, and companies like Regal in Japan. I'm naming about Japanese brands because they are really big and they offer us a lot. They still make lots of shoes in China. There's a factory there. I think they invested a lot to begin with, so it make sense for them to move out.
And we see that a lot of menswear and men's shoe stores are gaining traction in Asia. In all both China and South Korea, Vietnam also. Do you think the interest will continue to grow?
I think the interest will continue to grow, but I think the market outside Japan and Korea is still very small. It's still, even compared to, relative to the population. It's still very, very small. And Like even in Taiwan, yes, Taipei has a population maybe 5 million. That's a big city, but it's not exploding. I mean, the market for classic suits, especially, is not really exploding. But there are more interest in more from young people. But a lot of these like niche brands, like tailored and more craftsman-oriented brands, for most Asians, they're still considered luxury item.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not cheap at all.
But you picture it that there would be such a huge potential if
of course, the
just
potential of it.
Yeah, exactly. Just a small more part would start wearing classic shoes in, for example, China. Then I mean that it would be a lot of shoes to sell.
But these like more value or craftsman-oriented, this trend has been around in the fashion industry in the past few years already. So like big brands, they try to incorporate these aspects into their brand. Having, we have a bespoke show, or like we also offer custom-made or MTO shoes. So I think those kind of probably, so the fashion brands, there's strong competition for niche brands like us, because they're also offering more like tailored service too.
Yeah. But for me, one of the most exciting parts to see the past few years is the opening of medallion shoes shops in Shanghai and Beijing. I haven't visited, but you've seen the films and the pictures, and they look like amazing places.
But I heard they're amazing.
Yeah.
And the sales are amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think that, okay, this is something that will continue to rise.
China, of course, there's plenty of consumers too.
Yeah.
And even if a fraction of them move away from big fashion brands to more these craftsman-oriented brands, that's still a big market for
them.
Yeah,
exactly. But it's a bit interesting because it's just very few of those menswear stores in China.
It's not many, right? It's not many,
And those who are, they don't sell shoes made in Asia. It's mainly European or American. Why do you think that is?
Well, unfortunately, there's still stigma about made in China or made in Asia. And I think that stigma is also there for the craftsmen themselves. And they know they can make something really well and probably better or equal to Europeans and Japanese, but they're still afraid to really proudly stand on made in China and have their own brand. They don't think it will succeed. Yeah, so it's like the stigma is both on the makers and also for the consumers, I think. Unfortunately, but there are really great craftsmen there, of course.
I've seen. I mean, we have a few made in China shoes here at the moment, and I mean they are literally incredible, especially considering what the price is.
Point, the price point. So of course.
But will there be more Asian-made shoes in the store in Asia? Would you say? What do you think the direction will go?
Yeah, I think with the perception is definitely changing, and because of course, if people look for value versus quality versus value proposition, some of these Asian brands that used to not have a good finish, now they're made quite well and solid. I think people accept that. And that's natural, not just for people in Asia, but around the world. People start to not look at the made in what now, but they can understand. Consumers can understand the quality.
Yeah, they start looking at the shoes and not where it's made.
Yes, and leather, they see material, they see stitching and the last, and lots of the Asian shoemakers they have built up quite a long resume already. So I think they can sell shoes that definitely would be world.
Because what about Europe and the US? The classic shoe market is sort of a real exception here because we only see very few Asian-made goods, at least labeled there when we talk about this sort of luxury classic shoes. Will this change, you think?
In Europe and America?
Yeah, in Europe and America, because they're in a lot of sectors. I mean, made in China, it's also for luxury clothing. We see that a lot, or made in different Asian countries. But when it comes to classic shoes, there's very few with the made in China stamp or similar.
I think if they see something they can actually see the quality, I think it'll easily change the perception. Like in Japan too, it's like the big stigma against made in China and whatnot. But I've actually been surprised going to Isetan and they're totally fine selling like made in Indonesia, made in Vietnam. If they see the quality and the value is good, I think consumers they change quickly.
Yeah.
Especially if the price is good, of course.
And now with with Instagram and social media and the internet opening up everything,
they change perceptions quickly.
Yeah,
fast.
it's easy for us in Europe or other places around the world to see how well made they look and hear about the reception of Asian-made shoes.
I'm actually quite surprised how this past few years, how Instagram helped out offering, in this case, Japanese shoes. Because if the language is barrier, but then why not just use the visuals?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you've seen it for Japanese shoes, and now it's starting to come more and more with other, Indian-made shoes, Chinese, Vietnam. They start to get a reputation also in the social platforms.
Like for example, the Chinese shoemaker, Yim shoemaker, Gray Yim, and because I know he did most of the work for collaborating with a Japanese store, and probably just known in Japan. Even in Japan, he was known as the unknown shoemaker because he did.
It's Grey Jim.
It was him, but in Japan, he was an unknown shoemaker.
Yeah,
because maybe the Japanese company or both him, they didn't want to put his name on. Well, now he's exploded. He's interested in around the world. So
exactly. Sent in a shoe for the World Championships in shoemaking.
It was there too, right?
Very nice. I think he ended up in 12th place or something like that.
That's great.
So,
Chinese shoemaker.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we had a couple of other entries from other Asian countries, and we will continue to see that and see that.
Yes, I think it was two from China, right?
Yeah, maybe like that. Yeah. Because how good are Asian-made shoes today? Asian welted shoes.
Welted shoes, for example, like a very popular brand in Japan called Sriwijaya. It's made in Indonesia, but they've been making shoes for Japanese and other European companies for 50 years, and they definitely have the skill and the know-how. And for example, they make for United Arrows, and they also make for Armani. So they have a great repertoire too, and their price value point is great. And I just went to see the shoes in the expo today. I think they're very well made for the price, even for maybe 10,000 yen difference for the made in Japan shoes. They're all going to be customers who could seriously consider that.
And if we talk a little bit about the bespoke shoe scene in Asia, excluding Japan, how is the situation here?
And for example, in China, the handmade shoes we see today, that's a situation different from maybe Europe and Japan. That it's hard to pinpoint who they learned from. They didn't go to Europe or even Japan or England to make shoemaking. They're mostly factory workers. And there's no big shoe school either. So they learn their basics from a factory, and which include assembly line, assembly line shoemaking. But they also learn how to do hand sewn making, because perhaps some European companies they want them to make those shoes.
Yeah, exactly. They make.
So they have a wide variety of.
Yeah, in China and Asia in general, we should say that also in factories you have hand welding, which you don't really have in Europe or the US anymore. There it's only good welding, but here people are still hand stitching shoes to a higher degree in the factories.
I feel that they do shoemaking for a living and might not really aspire to become an artist shoemaker, kind of like Japan or elsewhere. They're just making shoes for a living. And once for example, since a few years ago, they started to have less jobs because the factories are moving out from China. And now they can find a new set of clients who want them to make more higher end shoes, and they can definitely comply they have the know-how, but they have the skill, but probably not the exposure and knowledge from people elsewhere in the world, in Japan and elsewhere. And I think with what's happening lately is that designers or brands from outside, they go to China to ask them to make shoes, and they teach them the know-how, which they previously didn't have, just as finishes and finishing and the details, which for them is learnable because they have the basic set of skills. And I think the shoes that comes out mainly from the brands from outside China, but made in China.
Yeah,
I think they're improving drastically. Drastically. Even for like Yim Shoemaker, he collaborated with a Japanese store, and he probably have samples and shoes of other brands to look at, which improved his more like aesthetics. The reason why lots of brands, for example, Taiwan, would not go to make in Europe, Italy, or England, which they can of course, because the factories in England, they accept OEM orders from around the world. And why choose China? Of course, language, proximity, and so that's the main reason. And the price point is it's very competitive compared to what they have in Japan or Europe. I think the Yim Shoemaker is around €1,000 to €1,200 for the full handmade shoes.
Yeah, exactly.
And this brand I have here, the Taiwanese brand, that's also have
Taipei.
It's like €700, which is very competitive for what they offer.
Yeah, because it's hand welted with handmade waist stitch, sole stitch at the waist, and then only the sole stitch in front is machine made.
Yeah, because this brand Grazia, which is founded by a good friend of mine, his name is Wilbur too. I think it demonstrates well how these made in Asia shoes are the quality is really growing, because a good friend of mine is a designer, he's a patina artist who helped produce here in Taiwan too. So he's been around for a while doing patina, and he designed the last himself, and he got the contract for the leathers. These are for Bonaldo, which is top grade for patina.
Yeah.
And then he went to find in China the art for the craftsmen, two or three craftsmen in Shanghai, and it took him 2 or 3 years to properly teach them what kind of style he exactly wanted. And then once they made it, and they sent back to Taiwan for finishing and also patina. So for him, initially he said that the ideal is to want to make made in Taiwan shoes.
Yeah.
Made in Taiwan shoes. This is proudly made in Taiwan. And he used to make it in Taiwan, but it's just leg stitched. And that's the only technology available in Taiwan now.
Okay.
They used to have grid Europe, but now that's all. So it's just natural for him to go to China and make it for proximity. So I think the point is, for Asian manufacturers, the most important thing is to know where to make it in Asia.
Yeah.
You have a good understanding of where to make it and how long it's going to take, and quality control. So you don't have to really insist on having made in a certain country. But more than that, it's important to try to bring out a good product that can be sold around the world.
Because I mean, in the menswear scene, we have seen a few examples of, like you say, Asian, like JOSL, it's an example in Singapore, who now have their own range of Chinese shoes that also look incredible. And we have Maslow, who is having his own project, and which I think will sell in Hong Kong and stuff like that. And I hope at least that we will see more of those in Europe as well, where they collaborate with these manufacturers in China. We get to see hand-welded shoes sold as ready-to-wear to a higher extent than what we do today. And it also will, because that's the good thing with the boom we've seen in the classic shoe industry, that for the customers there's so much to choose from, and they keep pushing the prices because the competition is so fierce. So even if it's tough for many of the manufacturers, it's for the customers it's awesome.
I think it's going to be a trend. This price range, around 700 to 1,000 euro range.
Yeah.
And if you see this shoe, which is
Yeah, exactly.
it's nice and welted,
Yeah.
and but you see like a steel shank and whatnot, which is
but still it looks more like a bespoke shoe. Than,
but definitely you can see kind of like where the factory kind of mentality comes
absolutely.
in versus like a purely handmade shoe mentality you see elsewhere.
It's sort of like a mix.
Yeah, it's a mixture. Yeah, maybe these cork is, I don't know if this.
It's still cork paste, but
cork paste. A lot of them, they probably have the shoes broken apart and to see what's going on, because all they've been making before was factory shoes. But for them, it's easy to adapt, I think. And the price point, of course, for this is good. It's a half factory kind of made, and half handmade for around 7,000.
Yeah, exactly. So, where do you see this branch in the coming years? If you look into the crystal ball, what do you think will happen?
Well, it's very hard to see if people accept these kind of shoes. Yeah, of course, you gotta try first, right? You gotta try first in Japan, of course, because of course many buyers are interested in something this price range. And you gotta try in England, of course, in biggest market, which is United States. But China still seems like people still kind of got introduced to new European brands. I think that kind of I call it those honeymoon periods still gonna continue before they start to discover Chinese-made shoes, I think. So it's like ironically in China it's still gonna be a while.
It's not happening tomorrow. It will take some time for it, but it will evolve in a direction where it gets more easily accessible.
And it definitely I think it's gonna stimulate manufacturers elsewhere. For example, Japan and England. Of course, these are competitors, and for the same price range, if they cannot find a way to meet something similar,
and like I mentioned, the customers will benefit from that.
Customers will benefit.
The customers,
of course. Even in Japan, the hand welted shoes, it's like mid the waist or the bottom is stitched, but there's a big market for that, and that market initially kind of rose up to compete against high-end Goodyear welted shoes from England, like John Love, Evergreen, and Gaziano, and so they're priced similarly. Maybe they don't have the brand name, but they're handmade. So I think that those sort of things will start again now with more value-oriented Asian shoes coming into Japan. I think those handmade shoemakers will have something to think about too.
It's interesting times. Robin Chang, thank you very much for being part of the podcast.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Shoegazing Podcast. For much more on classic shoes, visit shoegazing.com. And to those of you who want to support shoegazing and make it possible for me to continue to produce high-level content, there is a Patreon page where you can contribute with anything from $3 a month. Both big and small contributions are much appreciated. See shoegazing.com for more info on this. The podcast will be back with a new episode in a short while. That time with Jonathan Church, one of the owners of the Northampton-based brand Sheeny. So hear you again soon.